Hey, everybody. It's Patty Dobrovolsky with Up Your Creative Genius. Oh my God. Today for the podcast, I have Shaun Berstein, who is the most amazing pivoter because this guy was a lawyer. Well, no, he was a journalist, then a lawyer. And then now he started his own thing, helping people, the right agency, helping people with writing and blogs and their website. And I've been, snooping around on you, Shaun. It's been really fun to stalk you and see what you're up to. So
Thought I felt someone
welcome to
watching
the
me.
show. Welcome to the show. All right.
Great to
Cool.
be here, Patty. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh gosh, I love that I found you kind of through the back door. And I love your story and the fact that you drew a picture of your future, which of course, I love anybody's story about that and how it helped and inspired them. Oh, look, he's holding it up right now. For those of you that are just listening, he just held it up and showed it to me. I love that. But tell all the listeners a little bit about yourself and your story. Tell us your story because you love storytelling. I can't wait to hear your story.
Gladly, yeah. I'm happy to walk you through it. It's been a bit of a doozy. Really, what happens is when I hit a brick wall, I just like to go left or right, and I sort of, make a turn and make a pivot. So that's kind of been the ongoing theme and what's gotten me to where I am today. So I started as a journalist. I've been telling stories, as I say on my site, since I could hold a pen. I was that little kid writing storybooks and full stories from like age 3. And I
Now,
edited
did you
them.
save those stories from your
I
childhood?
have a
Because I want to
few.
know. All right, good. That's
They're in the
important.
closet behind me. I've got a few. They're classics.
Okay, good.
I was editing the elementary school paper and the high school newspaper and doing interviews in high school and just talking to whoever I could, and I loved it. And I wound up going to grad school for journalism, and I had the absolute time of my life. I did an internship with the national broadcaster up here, which was this
Wow.
great experience, and I just loved every second of the newsroom and the energy and the chase and all that was
Oh, I
wonderful.
bet. I bet. Oh, it
It's
sounds
so
exciting.
rapid fire, and you
Mm.
just you're the show is live whether you're ready or not, and so you gotta just be there and get it done. And I had an
Oh,
interview that recorded with a top level diplomat, and the sound quality was just terrible.
oh,
I had to call him back and
oh
track him down again and get
no.
it
Oh
recorded
my
again
God.
like 5 minutes
Ah,
before we were on the air, and I just
oh
basically
God.
ran with the tape and we put it in. So everyone who's been in the newsroom has crazy stories. I've got my own. I love sharing those war stories. They're fun. Those are
That's
fun
fantastic.
stories.
Well, then you loved it so much. Then how in the world and why did you become a lawyer?
So that's a great question. First of all, there were just no jobs. It was a dark time in the media world. I'm up in Canada. The media world is a much smaller landscape with fewer opportunities to really kind of earn some cash. And it was just not going my way. I spent a
Yeah.
good 6 months hunting and said, you know what, I'm not going to sit on my behind after 6 years of school and just wait around for things to come to me. And law was kind of always on the back burner. Had a couple of families who'd been through law, and a few relatives who were still practicing. And my mother had practiced for a bit and left and went to go run businesses and did other things. And so I always saw law as a road to doing something else. My
Okay.
journey into law was never typical of, oh, you're going to be a lawyer and look at paperwork until you drop at your desk, which I think is
Well, every
pretty
time I think
typical.
about lawyers, I think about seeing them on the airplane with those big briefcases with all of their files in there and thinking, oh, I couldn't one, drag that thing around, two, couldn't read that much information that was disinteresting, frankly.
You
So
got it. And read the fine print on that information that's so disinteresting.
that's right, to make sure it's accurate and correct.
Devil's in the
And then
details, my
that's
friend.
right. That's right. What kind of a lawyer then did you become?
So I became an employment lawyer because
Okay.
I had a bit of a background in HR as well. And I love people. And you can tell by listening 5 minutes in, I love talking to people. It's what I enjoy. And if I could help anyone, that's even better. So I got into employment law. I had a bit of an HR background as well as the journalism, and I have just always loved talking to people and helping people. And employment law looks a little different up in Canada. There's a whole set of strict laws for
Yes.
employers and employees to follow. So I was representing both sides, which was great because you can kind of put both hats on.
Yeah.
If I'm representing an employee who's just been let go, and thinking, okay, so the employer's going to do this in the chess game. So
Yeah.
I'm going to move my
Okay.
rook here. And then, we're going to do this and this. So it's
Oh
it's
my
neat in
gosh.
that sense. But there's a whole lot of law that I did not enjoy, which
Oh,
is
I
why I'm
bet.
talking to you today.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then why did you decide to quit? And then how did you do that? Because that's a leap from something solid to something that is like boom, out in the middle of nowhere. You're not standing on a net or a bridge or a little rope between two places. You're kind of in thin air. So tell people what you did then and how you got out of it.
Sure. So I'll take a step back. I actually quit twice. I had a first job that I was practicing for a couple months. It was just not the right setup for me.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that. And
Okay.
I walked away and said, "That's it. I'm never doing this again. Not feeling it. This is not the way that I want to run a business." And I
Right.
left, and I did other things, and I had some jobs that were kind of peripheral to law. And I had actually a great gig that was at a law firm, not practicing, that was really quite cushy, and I was growing in the role.
Oh
And I
yeah.
only had left because my dream law firm that I always wanted to work for, who I love still, called me and said, "Hey, if you want to come join us, we've got an opening. This is the time." And I said, "You know what? I would be remiss if I didn't try it again."
Yeah.
So I tried it again, and
Yeah.
I did about a year with them. And bless them, it made me realize a year of law that I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what I love about this is that you started off with something you're really passionate about, and then you felt compelled to get a job. And this is, going to a different direction. And so you did that. And then when you were in that, you realized, oh, no, 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 that's not it. And then you went back because sometimes I think that's what we do. We think, oh, well, I'll give it one last shot because why not? Right. And then, but now you're not doing that at all. Now you're doing what? Tell us about that.
So I left for good in the summer of 2019, and I said, "Yeah, my brain was just done, to put it mildly, and I could not go back." And I said, "Okay, so what comes next year? What's next for me?" I was still young. I still sort of had a career ahead of me, and I didn't really know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I have a partner who I believe Patty, who is much, as you probably know already, is much sharper than I am. And she kind of elbowed me in the ribs and said, "You're a writer, go and write." And what
Yeah.
stopped me from making that pivot earlier, I had looked at sort of, different ways that I could pivot my career. But what I think held me back was that I was so afraid of starting my own business, my own thing, not having that net, not being an
Yeah.
employee. Can you really make this work? And thankfully, with that encouragement, I said, "Okay, you know what? Let's try this, see what happens. And if I fall on my face, I fall on my face." And thankfully, I didn't. Mhm.
Well, fantastic. That's great. And so you just started to write for people and put it out there that you could help them, right? And so you're writing now. I see that you're doing some writing for other people and you are doing your own writing. You do your own blog posting around things that are really simple, short, um, things to promote yourself, but also helpful information for other people. So now, what is it that inspires you about what you're doing now? What do you really love that you're doing? And tell us a little more about what you do for people so you can help them.
Sure, gladly. So I started up as the Right Stuff agency in the fall of 2019. And my initial motto was, "Don't say no. Just say yes." Someone asks if you can help, just give it a shot. I said in the beginning, I've been telling stories forever. And so to me, it's all just a different way of storytelling. And sometimes the storyteller changes or the audience changes, but everybody understands stories, stories that we latch onto. And I said, okay, maybe I could really help. And because I had an background as well in blogging, I'd won a couple national blog awards. I knew that I could sort of tell stories that could be easily understood. And because of the legal, I can make complicated things simple. I said, okay, maybe that'll translate more broadly into businesses.
So you were doing some work with legal and accounting and healthcare. And then, and now what are you doing now?
Really, a little bit of everything. Exactly that. I am telling stories in all kinds of different formats. So I am
Fantastic.
writing websites and writing blogs and newsletters and articles and speeches and open letters and ebooks and just
That's
finding all new ways to tell stories.
I love that. I love that because now you're back to your journalism self. Now tell me, who inspires you in what you're doing? Like who do you look for and what do you love to read and look at when you're in it online? What can we get from you, learn from you, and who can you touch us, tap us into so that we can just expand a little bit? What are your favorites?
That's a great question. I love stories. I love a good life story. For anyone who's actually watching, you can see the bookshelf behind me is not a backdrop, it's real, and it's mostly biographies. It's mostly biographies of people who are interesting, who've had really interesting lives, and a lot of mostly autobiographies of them sort of telling their stories. I love that. I love figuring out still what makes people tick and what interests them. And that's what I try to do in my business. So I love any sort of good writing. I'm still a bit of a news junkie. I still love good reporting, good storytelling.
Gosh, where do you find good reporting now? I mean, like really?
So it's a combination, right? In school you're taught how to do it right. And
Yes.
there's no question a lot of folks along the way somehow lose their way. But good reporting is really, you don't need to be overly complicated in the way you tell a story to tell a complicated story. I
So
love
that's like your tip for people about when they're writing their own blog posts, if they're doing their own posting, what should they consider? Is it
if you're
the
doing your own posting, you have to put yourself in the shoes of your readers. And
Yeah.
ideally, those readers are your prospective clients. And what do they want to know? You are probably the subject matter expert in whatever you're writing about, and that's great. But remember that they're not, and your goal is not to make them the subject matter expert. Your goal is to make sure they know that you are, and they have to call you next time they need something. So
Ooh.
don't try to overeducate them. Don't go into, lawyers are the worst at this. To go into the weeds and, really nuances of a legal case. Your readers aren't interested. They just want to know that you can help them
Yeah.
when they have the same problem.
I love that. I love that. So really don't give it all away is what you're
No.
saying. I'm terrible at that. I just give it all away all the time,
That's why you
but
help people.
that's part of my DNA, right? And now, who inspired you when you were young to be resilient like this? Who was somebody that was an influence for you growing up, or somebody you worked with, a teacher? Tell us a little bit about your story of how you got to, this pivot point and were able to find the courage to do it.
I have to give it all to my mom because that's I know it's a cliche answer, but she's pretty incredible, and she's also the queen of the pivot. She went into law
Well, she
school
was a
because
lawyer, right? She
she
was a
went into law
lawyer.
school because she was
Yeah.
going to run a family business, and when she was in school, the family business closed.
Wow.
So that was not what she was expecting. So she had
I
to
guess
pivot that
not.
way. I was born and I had a couple serious health issues as a baby, so she really couldn't manage a legal career and that. And so she had to pivot again and became a full-time fundraiser for a while. She wound up running a very successful clothing store for a couple of years, then pivoted into a sales business that really took off, then pivoted into another sales business in a totally unrelated industry that helped her retire. And now she golfs 6 days a week and she's living her best life. But she
Oh,
is the absolute queen of the pivot. And my hat goes off to her. She is fearless.
well, I think it's fearless for anybody to leave something. And I have left many careers, big careers that I had and pivoted. And I think that I grew up in a family like you did, where my father, he worked in his same job for, I don't know, 40 years or something. And then they glass ceilinged him. They said, we're not going to promote you. You could stay here. You can make the same amount of money, but we're not going to promote you and expand your role. And my father was like, forget it. I'm out. And he went and became an entrepreneur. He started his own consulting practice and he won awards. And, he was really, his specialty was concrete. So I tell people, my dad was very concrete, and he really was. He
He was a solid
he
guy.
just was so flat, flat affect. He really was flat. And then every so often he'd left, like that. But what's true is every single one of us has been entrepreneurs in some way in our careers. All three of my siblings and I, we're just That's it. And I think once you see that, then you know it's possible, right? So if you, when you're thinking about that pivot, what did you do to encourage yourself on the days when things didn't happen? Like, how did you get yourself out of bed, or what kinds of things, self-talk, how'd you work with yourself to still feel inspired to go back to the page and go back to try to get clients?
So I told myself something that I think still sticks with me today. Is I had uh, a bit of a history of betting on the wrong horse when it came to jobs, and I had some great employers, I had some not so great employers, and there were times where I had an option between the two, and unknowingly I would take the not so great employer and had some not so great experiences. And there's never such a thing as a real problem in hindsight, because you've learned from those experiences as much as you do anything else. But I, had said that I had bet on the wrong horse. And I realized that, look, when you bet on yourself, you can't lose. And if
I like that.
I bet on myself and I knew that I could do this, I knew I had the skills. I know where my strengths are, so I know I could play to my strengths.
Yep.
And if I bet on myself, there's no way that I could really lose doing this. It might be rocky, but I'd win in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when you bet on yourself, really, you'll always win.
Mhm.
And even as it's hard, because it is hard at times, there are days where you think, well, I'm not sure what to do next. But if you have the courage to go forward and just get up, and for me, sometimes it's just keep moving forward. Small steps add up to big gains. And so for you, it seems like that what I love about it is that you went back to what you're most passionate, and that passion. So for people that are listening, if you don't have a passion that you found yet, search around and think about the things that you would do when you have free time and it's just you. What would you do? And what do you do when you're just playing, right? Because there's a key in there for the things that you will love to do, I think. Um, one of the things that I was thinking about was, you said you did a map. What's on the future state side of that picture of yours that you drew? That picture.
On the future state side, I wanted to be stronger, which I am. I've been exercising fairly regularly. I wanted to be popular, which the business is, which I'm really
I
pleased
like that
about.
you said popular.
I have
So
a picture
anybody,
of a
you
thumbs
be
up.
sure to like him and follow him, the
The Right
right
Stuff Agency.
agency, the
The
right
Right
stuff
Stuff.
agency,
There we
right
go.
stuff agency.
Want to be busy. I put a picture of a bee, and I've been busy as a bee lately, and then some. And I wanted to be energized, and I like to think that I
Whoa,
am. So
you definitely are. It's just crazy. Well, and I think that something about you, your energy is like already excited about the story that you're about to write or you're about to find out. So I can't wait to see what else happens for you. So if there was some big dream that you still have that you haven't tapped into, what's that secret dream that you have at night that you have not quite stepped into yet?
that's a great question. I have a project potentially on the horizon of writing a book with someone.
Ah,
And I talked about it in a blog post a couple weeks ago, because I never sort of had that dream of writing the great novel. I don't write fiction, generally speaking. I don't read a lot of fiction, as you can see behind me. So this is going to be, as more on the self-help genre, it'll be nonfiction. But it'll be really interesting to sort of put that many words together. I work in a long form, but not that long. So it'll be
yes.
a really interesting challenge to help, jump in on that one, and then see if that's something that takes me in the future, if I'm going to start helping to write books.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And I think you having a podcast too would be fantastic because you're a great journalist. I love your writing style. The stuff that I read, I was like, oh, it's so crisp and clean. That guy really knows how to write, right? So I'm engaged from the very beginning of the story. But to see you launch into, what you're passionate about, which is people and understanding them and getting to the heart of what it is that they need. I love that. And I can't wait to see that all happen for you. So if you were to give some advice to anybody about how they could pivot or what to do when you pivot, what would you tell them? What advice would you give about? Because you seem to do that. Like, your partner, she said, go do it, go write. And you were like, okay, boom, like that. And then you started. But what advice would you give? What do people need to be thinking about or doing?
I think you have to just kind of, I mean, it sounds cliche, but just summon your courage and make that leap. It is a leap, and we stop ourselves because we get so afraid. What if it doesn't work out? What if this happens? What if that happens? If this didn't work out, I'd go get a job. It's really, the worst case scenario was not so bad. And in most things in life, the worst case scenario is not so bad. And I think the second you realize that and it clicks in, you kind of go, okay, what do I got to lose?
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. And then it seems like the marketing part of it is, how's that going?
The marketing, the business, you mean?
Yes.
It's gone well. I'm so grateful. Most of my clients, almost exclusively, are referrals. So much of it is coming from word of mouth, and clients are happy. And when they're happy, they send more people their way.
That's yes. And
So
I love
just
that
doing
because
what I
this
can to
is,
attract it.
it's a tip like, don't forget, don't ever burn a bridge, right? Always stay in contact with the people that you know. Did you put anything out on LinkedIn, or how did you let people know that you were launching your business?
My first website, I say, was one of the worst that I've seen. It was a joke, and it was done haphazardly. I'm a writer. I'm not a web designer. I hire those out. But it was done very haphazardly by me in an afternoon. And it was one post of me saying, here I am. I'm now available to ghostwrite and copy, do whatever copy and content you need. And, I put up a couple old posts that I had done for other employers and a short resume, and the barn doors burst open. It was wild. People
Oh,
started reaching
wow.
out. I'm lucky that I have a big network of people who reached out and said, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I said, sure, let's give it a shot.
Oh,
What have we
wow.
got to lose? Let's give it a shot. And it kind of blossomed from there.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And I love that you were brave enough to put something out there, even if it wasn't good. And I think that, when I tell entrepreneurs, the thing is, you just have to leap and the net will appear. You'll figure it out. And every day you have to learn something new to get there. But if you put it into a picture, you solidify it by writing it down, you think about it and dream about it, see how you're going to build this story of your life, then you get to a place where life becomes so exciting and expansive that you don't really, it's just not going to work.
Mhm.
And that, I think, is part of it, is that when you feel like it, you're working. That's the question. Whenever I'm doing something, and I don't know if you've come across that with writing any stories, but when you feel like you're working, it means that you're not really aligned with your passion. You're not really, because when you love what you do, nothing feels like work. Even if it's long hours, it's not work because you're doing something you love, right?
Exactly. I love this. I love this work. It tires me out sometimes, and it's, that's, I can't believe how many words I wrote today, and I'm bouncing like a ping pong ball between 6 different clients and totally different industries and different ideas, but I'm having fun.
Oh, that's
Just
fantastic.
having fun.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to tell us about your story. I just can't wait to read more. The Right Stuff Agency. You want to check out Shaun Berstein and all the things he's doing, because you're amazing, Shaun. You're a great example of the pivot for people who are ready to make a change. To follow him. I'll put his information in the show notes. And if you like what you heard today and you want to bring people to up your creative genius, the podcast, I would just love for you to send this out to your friends who are really ready to pivot and they want to do something new, because this is a great story of how you can create change in your life. And it doesn't have to be that hard. We make it much harder than we need to because we get so scared. And you were really brave in this whole thing. And I love that. And I'm so excited to see what you're going to do next, Shaun. So thanks so much for taking time with me today. I loved hearing your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. It's been a pleasure.
All right. So we'll see you soon next time, everybody. Until next time, up your creative genius. I mean it. I mean it.